Podcasting will be a thrill. Grandpa and chill, grandson and friends. Grandpa and chill in full effect. We talk about it all, yeah, put it all on the set with that pet craze too. We chillin' with Rosie, come through, stay tuned, yeah, listen closely. Cause this the millennials and the silent generation coming together, discussion in rotation. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Hey everybody, I'm Brandon Fox. I'm here with our amazing producer Sierra, our co-host Phines, as always my grandpa, and today we have on
Bijou.
Yeah, and I've been super excited for this episode. I would love if you could give the audience just like a little bit more background on who you are, how you got what you got into, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show, everyone. I originally got into the line of work that I'm in because I was a branding consultant. So I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs on their brands and really just like coaching them to be better at business and to show up for their business and personal brand wise. And I was really interested in biohacking, like optimizing yourself with either like wearable technology or supplements, so you're just performing better, your brain's working better, and you're just showing up for yourself. And that kind of got me into using psychedelics for myself. And I saw so much benefit from it. At first, I was kind of just using it for maybe more of the shallow reasons. And then I started really feeling some deep healing out of it. And that really started propelling me in a completely different way. So it kind of made me a little bit more of a conscious entrepreneur. So then I started diving into what is a conscious entrepreneur. And that's when I realized I wanted to help people be more conscious with their businesses and with their lives, and really support them on their own psychedelic journeys, because it is therapy, in my opinion, and or it can be utilized as a therapy. And you can see a lot of amazing results as long as you have some support. And so, yeah, now I kind of do therapeutic coaching where we figure out what mental blocks you might have in your business and in your life. And then we kind of work through them with a couple different modalities that I've learned. So that's what I'm doing now, and I absolutely love it.
And what is a conscious entrepreneur?
So a conscious entrepreneur is definitely an entrepreneur that cares about what their business is doing to the planet, to the community around them, how it's affecting their lives. So I know when I was an entrepreneur, I was like really redlining myself and like pushing really hard towards these like really like random goals that were mostly focused on money and not really like enriching my life or giving me a really good experience while I'm on the planet. So I think that a conscious entrepreneur actually asks a lot of important questions, like how are my products, like actually, are they green, or are they potentially causing harm to the environment? Or is my marketing really making people feel bad about themselves rather than just offering a solution, or maybe even making them fearful? Like, how is my work-life balance working out? Like, does my family feel like I'm never here or that I'm always stressed? And so, yeah, a conscious entrepreneur to me is just someone who is a little bit more aware of how they're impacting the world around them and their own lives.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like this is a super amazing and interesting topic for this group, I would say, because the different perspectives of the generations and stuff like that. I imagine with some entrepreneurs, there might be some hesitancy or roadblocks, or, I mean, could you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, I was actually wondering if your grandfather had any experience with psychedelics from the past, but yeah, I mean, entrepreneurs, they're really stressed people. They have a lot on their shoulders. They need to be super creative. They have to wear multiple hats. They have to put themselves out there and feel confident enough to put themselves out there. A lot of times you have like imposter syndrome, or you have these blocks about worrying about what people are going to think, or of failure. And those are really rooted from past experiences that really just need to be like healed or wiped clean, so you can actually go out and do what you want to do in a more creative and confident way. So most entrepreneurs have the same mental blocks. They just have like a different flavor of it.
I feel like, oh, sorry, go Phines.
No, it's just well, one of my first questions was like when she was saying using it from like a shallow, like using psychedelics as from a shallow point to more of a depth way, but she's explaining it. So I was just like, I see, because it seems like there's way more depth. Like,
yeah, no, you're right. Like, that's such a good point. I didn't really like clarify what I meant by shallow, and I don't mean it as like you're shallow if you're doing them for these reasons. It was just like, I only thought that it was going to help me like this, and then it helped me like so much lower. Right. So what I originally was interested in was like clarity and focus and stress management and creativity, like kind of what all of the Silicon Valley guys were touting to be effects of this kind of stuff. But I had no idea how much it was actually going to like heal my past and heal some of the limiting beliefs that I had. So that's why I think that they're so successful with everyone now, is because they really get to the root of the problem. As long as you're being like really conscious about how you utilize them, you're really doing them in a therapeutic way with some support, you can really, really move some big blocks that you might have.
Bijou, can you give me an example of a block?
Yeah. So abundance block is like huge. Like the worthiness of, am I worthy of money? Can I even really make that kind of money? Like, I'd never had an example of that. Like, my parents never did. The people around me don't. Who am I to think that I can? There's something wrong with me. Like, people will find out if I put myself out there, or who am I to think that I can be that successful? Or there's too many other people out there already doing this and I'm not that special, or it's too hard and I'm going to fail. So I might just like stay in this safe place. Like, all of those blocks typically come up. And people aren't even always aware of them until we start asking some questions. And then typically when they're especially under the influence of this like mind opening substance, you can really find a lot more answers. Like, for instance, some people will have an experience when they're young, like someone might have told them something and they obviously didn't mean to hurt them, but maybe like a coach or a teacher or someone at their church said something to them, and it was like they were a sponge at that point and they really like embodied that belief, but then they haven't really thought about that in a long time, but it's definitely something that's still affecting them. And so like finding those like psyche seeds and like uprooting them is a really interesting thing to do.
Do you have any or a lot of clients who are very sort of interested, but they're scared of the stigma or whatever? I feel like there's so much, even with pot, but mushrooms and LSD specifically, like a lot of healing properties. I know Portland, Oregon just had something, but the studies always got shut down. And I've had one experience personally, but I'd love for you to talk about your personal clients.
Yeah. Well, studies are happening more and more, and even like big organizations like Johns Hopkins just got a lot of money from the government to test like these trials on people to see the benefits of it. So that's a really amazing thing in a positive direction. But that's why I kind of love microdosing, because it's a very like approachable way to kind of dip your toe in and not kind of buy into the way that the media maybe has been presenting them for so long. So people typically feel much more in control when they start with microdosing, and then they start seeing like major benefits from it, and they start really trusting the mushrooms, and mushrooms like are so safe. Like there are like zero chances of you becoming addicted to it or going to the hospital or overdosing or anything like that. So people really get comfortable with them pretty fast, and then they might start dabbling in like deeper healing experiences. But a lot of the clients that I work with, they might have had this like weird experience in college where they like took way too much while they were drunk at a concert, and it was like way too much stimuli, and all of this was like unraveling inside of them, and they got really almost traumatized by that experience. And so they have to like ease their way back in, and realize how important it is that you're like supported in a really comfortable environment with a really deep intention before you kind of start working with these things. Because I mean, you do have to respect them. They can be extremely powerful, and that's why it's really important to work on dose and strain and all of that stuff.
And
Wow.
yeah, fine.
I guess. Do you help with that? You know, like, yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
How so?
So there are certain strains, like there's so many different types of psilocybin mushroom. There's like almost over 200, and some of them are much more appropriate for like super deep dive trips where you're completely laying down, not talking, really inside of your own psyche. And then there's others where they're more appropriate for maybe you to do a couples trip with your partner and talk and have a nice time, or for you to microdose with, because it's like a lighter, smoother, more euphoric type strain. And so depending on what your past experiences, what your goals are, and who you are as a person, like your physiology, it's nice to pick a strain to start with, and then maybe like change strains to see if you like those better. But I always try to help consult people into like, what's the right strain for you? Let's find the right dose for you that you can actually do your normal life on. So like you can still drive, you can still be a father or a mother, and you can still do your Zoom calls. You can still do everything. It's as light as like a cup of coffee, but it is still like reconnecting your neural pathways and helping you with your stress management and all of that stuff. So there's just different doses that are really appropriate for what you're trying to do.
Wow. Thinking about the blockage thing too, and I guess my question is how they get there. I know this is a hard question. I mean, I'm pitting like what are your thoughts on like, and this is a really vague question, so I'm sorry, because I know everyone has blockages for different reasons and stuff like that. But do you why do you think they're there? Why do you think they come up? I know you brought up some of them too. I mean, you said experiences, but
that's a really good question, actually, and no one's really given me the chance to answer, so I appreciate that. We associate a lot of people, when I ask them if they have any past traumas, they think a trauma is something crazy, like a car accident, or someone tried to kill them, or like a sexual assault or something like that. But in all actuality, a trauma is anything that actually traumatized your system. So it could have been as simple as like a bully said something to you, or you were extremely embarrassed when you tried to give a speech, or something like that. So we all have traumas, and we aren't really like given the tools to process those, especially at a young age. And so those get trapped in our bodies. Like there's a ton of great books about this, like The Body Keeps the Score. And our bodies actually hold on to that tension. And it's a defense mechanism. It helps us learn to stay alive. So if you were an animal and you learned that type of animal was going to hurt you, or that type of experience was going to hurt you, your muscle memory, everything about you would remember that, so you didn't experience that again, so that you like would stay safe. We still have those same reactions. And so if you had an embarrassing experience giving a presentation in second grade and it really dramatized you, like it made you feel like really shitty, it can affect you being a good speaker when you're older. You know what I mean? So like those are the deep-seated traumas that we have that we need to process because we're no longer in that environment. We're no longer those people. And so we have to let go of those things that are no longer serving us.
This seems like why there's the importance of some support there as well. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And how do you, besides coordinating the dose and stuff, like go through the experience? Like, what is a typical session with a client on a first time? Because I imagine, I'm thinking back to my class presentations, but bringing that up in a meaningful way is probably quite difficult or a trip, you know?
Yeah. And that's why I love it so much. It's so intimate. Like I love working with people in such deep ways because it feels so fulfilling for them to like find that, oh my God, I haven't thought about that in forever. And yes, I still have a reaction to that. And now I know what to work on. I have clarity on what's blocking me, or at least one of the things, right? So it starts by me asking them a lot of questions on like a discovery call to get to know them and to understand what they think their limiting blocks are. But definitely when I do my sessions and I ask a lot of leading questions, we find out that it's actually something much deeper than that. And it's kind of like a tree almost, like there's this root of something that happened and then all of these other issues stem out of it. So I definitely ask the body. So that's why a lot of times talk therapy doesn't work for people, because they talk about it over and over and over again, and it doesn't really like move that out of their body. So like somatic healing is actually like moving energy out of your system. So getting back to that animal that is being like attacked by a lion, if you've ever seen an animal on like one of those Natural Geographics, when they're running away from a predator and they actually get away, they like shake off the stress. And we don't really have something like that, or we're not taught that. So we have all of that locked up in our bodies. And if we have too much of it, I believe that that's when we start getting depressed and anxious and maybe even have autoimmune disease. So it really like relieving those and getting those out of the body. Your body wants to tell you what's wrong. We just never ask it. We just always let our brains like rehash things and talk about things until we're blue in the face. But there's a lot of times when I ask people how they're feeling when we talk about a situation that we know might be a little bit triggering, or allow them to envision their higher selves. And when they scan their body, if there's a part of them that goes, no way, no, or they get like super sad in a certain part of their body, we actually like go into that part of their body and ask that part of their body, like, why are you feeling this way? Like, what happened to make you feel this way? Why are you trying to protect yourself from these experiences? And it's crazy, but we get so many amazing illuminated answers out of like just asking the deeper part of ourselves, or like the inner child part of ourselves, or the body part of ourselves, these questions. And I mean, it blows people's minds that it was so easy for it to come out, and all they had to do was ask the right part of themselves.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's blowing my mind because what's blowing my mind is you're talking about like your body acts this way and you ask your mind, but I'm like, your mind and body is one thing. But it's like that's what the blockage thing you're talking about though is like it can be one thing, but there's still like parts that are blocked because of safety, whatever. Which makes them feel like I don't know. I'm trying to mull it over myself. So I'm like, I know, I get what you're saying, right? There's a mind, there's my body, ask my body, shaking it off. But I'm like, they're one and the same thing, and but this is why I'm clicking with the blockage, because I'm like, but they're not connected because
yeah, I mean, we use our body as like storage like areas. So like in Chinese medicine, for instance, they believe that depending on what you have wrong with you, like if you have liver disease or you're a heavy drinker or you have like heart attacks or you have migraines or you have weak joints, they believe that that's associated with like a mental issue that you're not like relieving or working on. And so I've kind of seen a similarity from my work, but I don't know enough about Chinese medicine to like really understand if it's like matching up completely. But yeah, I definitely would say that there are different aspects. Like I hold my anger in some parts of my body. I hold my stress like in my hips. I hold my sadness in my heart. Like we do hold some of our emotions in different parts of our bodies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What does it feel like for someone new to this, like one of your typical clients, like the actual trip itself, right? Especially when you're going into the more emotional areas.
Mm-hmm. So it depends on the dose. Like a session dose is just like something that would be double of a microdose. So like I said, microdoses are like very light. You should be able to go about your day no problem. But a session dose just makes you a little bit more emotional. Like it helps you bring down your walls a little bit. You're a little extra sensitive and a little bit more just focused on what we're talking about, and you can actually visualize a lot better. So you can either visualize a past issue that you had, or you can visualize a future self that you want to embody. But they sometimes experience like yawningness because like we purge energy in different ways, like big yawns or like shivering or crying or stuff like that is our body's just like purging emotion and energy. So they might experience some of that during the session, but it's really like they're just very sensitive. That's why it's important that it's like quiet and they feel very safe and we're like opening them up. But if you're talking about a big trip, like facilitating a big trip, I mean, anything could happen on a big trip, but a lot of times it's at first your body is like so used to feeling in control that it like doesn't want to let go, and it doesn't want to let go of the feeling of being in control. So it might feel like you're about to blast off, like what a rocket looks like before it goes away. And so that's like how they might experience it. And then once they surrender and they go either in or up, they kind of experience euphoria or bliss, or maybe even deep emotion where they get to like process and like cry in a way that they have never let themselves cry in their whole lives. Or they might envision something that they really need to let go of, that they almost need to like see again to process. And so that's why it's really important. There's no, in my opinion, such thing as a bad trip. It's a challenging trip, but if you feel super supported and you're mentally prepared for it, it can be, I mean, profound. It can be something that you can change the rest of your life. But if you're like not prepared and you don't know what to expect and you don't feel like you're in a safe place, then that could be extremely traumatizing.
Yeah. I really want to bring Grandpa into this conversation. I know that you, correct me if I'm wrong, you had the word psychonaut or something along those lines, and there's a big spiritual aspect to a lot of the work that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I personally grew up extremely religious, and there was parts of it that kind of somewhat traumatized me, or like I could have traumatized myself with the ideas that I wasn't maybe processing correctly. But I definitely had to heal that. And now I'm much more spiritual in the way that I feel deeply a lot of teachings from a lot of different religions, and majority of them are coming back to my connection with myself and Mother Nature. But it's like a very spiritual experience. Like I talk to the higher power or God or the universe, whatever anyone wants to call it. It is like a religious experience, but you can get to that trance state with like breath work or yoga or even sex. Like you can get there without all of this, but it's just another tool. But yeah, psychonaut kind of just means that someone is interested in mind expansion with typically mind altering substances.
Yeah, Grandpa.
Well, Bijou, when you say mind-altering substances, what substances are we referring to?
So there's lots of them. There's like MDMA that they're finding is really great for PTSD.
What is that called?
MDMA.
I'm sorry. Never heard of it. But
It's there's a lot of terms for it, like you maybe Molly or the pure form of ecstasy, but it's they're finding out that PTSD is really like healed with that. So like veterans are really experiencing some deep healing from the MDMA. MDMA is amazing for couples. There's psilocybin, and that's actually from mushrooms. And there's LSD, which is acid. MDMA and acid are made in a lab, but like acid was actually synthesized out of a mushroom. Mushrooms are natural. There's ayahuasca, there's ibogaine, there's huachucho, there's San Pedro. There's tons of things that you can utilize.
Have you tried all these different substances?
I've tried a lot. I have not tried ibogaine. Ibogaine is a very intense experience that a lot of people are utilizing right now to actually support them in getting off of heroin. And it has an amazing success rate, incredibly amazing success rate. So if anyone out there listening has potentially a friend or a family member that's really struggling with heroin, you should watch the documentary Dosed. It does a really good job of explaining like the treatment you would have to go through. But yeah, she has a really hard time in the movie getting off of heroin. And then one or two doses did the trick. It's pretty amazing.
Sure sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we talk a lot about Grandpa's sort of sixth sense or sort of can you get into that, Grandpa?
Well, what would you like me to just
tell you? The feeling of vibes that you have, and I don't know.
I guess I don't have I call it a high sensitivity. I don't have the filters maybe that most human beings have. I don't know really what other human beings feel, but I can feel the brain waves from any living thing at a pretty large distance. Could be as something like an animal, a person, even a bug. I feel the brain waves, and I'm assuming, but I don't know the real reason for it. I've been told that it could happen for a few different reasons. One would be that my parent wasn't as sensitive to my feelings. That would be one possibility. Another one is that the use of some drugs may have taken away the filtering system. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I don't know the answer to it, but I tend to think that drugs are hypnotic, basically, and what you experience in life at one stage of your life may be a lot different than what you would experience at another stage of your life.
Absolutely. And I think what you're explaining is a lot of people on their psychedelic journeys, they become much more intuitive. They become much more empathetic and empathic, and they can like sense a lot more. So you might just have a gift. I've heard all kinds of reasons for those gifts, like from a tear in your aura from a past trauma, or you're just born super psychic. I don't know what your sign is, your birth sign, but there are certain signs.
Aries.
What are you?
Yeah.
Aries. Okay.
But this is an actual physical thing. It's not a psychological thing. It's a physical thing. It's just the same as if you touch me and I can feel your touch or taste or sight or hearing. And it's a very strong sense.
Yeah, it's all energy.
It's as strong as any of the other
you're
senses.
Feeling. That's really cool.
Pardon?
It's energy. You're feeling the energy. You're just like attuned to it. You're like a radio transmitter that is much more sensitive than most people.
receiver.
Yes, receiver.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
cool.
Yeah. The brain sends out a electromagnetic signal. It's a chemical thing, but through the spinal column, and it radiates out. In fact, they can measure with prods. They don't have to go inside your brain. Now they're really interpreting thoughts with that. But I can pick up those brain waves at a distance.
That's cool.
Well, it's got its negatives and positives.
I bet.
Yeah. You said that you've experienced people with similar sort of openness or gifts after the sort of psychonautic experience.
Yeah, I would say that our world is very it's very stimulating. We not only might be sensitive because of a lot that's going on in our minds and our bodies, but also we're just constantly inundated by sound and light and people. So a lot of times our bodies shut down in order to be able to focus or to not get overwhelmed all the time. And so we shut down to not only our own emotions and thoughts, but also potentially to how an animal might be feeling or how our partner might be feeling. Because you can kind of sometimes look at someone and tell what they're experiencing. But if you're always in your own head and always rushing around, you're not paying attention to anything. And so I believe that this slows you down enough to be a little bit more observant, and it kind of makes you a little bit more sensitive to the things that you ask to be more sensitive to, or the things that you put your focus on. So yeah, I would say there's been some of my clients that were very just shut off for many reasons. And then once they started opening up a little bit and softening a bit, they were able to really tell how their dog was feeling. They could pick up that their mom needed them to call her or something like that. Things just start happening when we're especially super connected to certain people. We have cords to them or attachments to them. We can really start tuning into that kind of stuff. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I always wondered if there was a way to get Grandpa to harness his power, because it seems like something he can't ever turn on or off, and he talks about it quite frequently, and I think it's very trippy and very cool. But
well, it's not something that I have the ability to turn on and off. It's
right, that's what I'm saying.
You can shut your eyelids and not see, but you can't really shut your ears unless you put something over your head. And it's kind of like that. I don't really have the control. I do to some degree by the way I stress my brain, but basically it's not something, it's a physical reaction to the brainwave, and it's not something that I can control, and it can also be very uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable because there's a lot of stress in society, so you tend to pick up a lot more in terms of stress from a person, a frightened animal, or whatever it is, than you pick up the vibes of love, of elation, or whatever other kind of thought the other creature's having.
It's cool.
But it does help you to understand the woman's mind.
I'm sure, which must have been nice, or not.
Right.
I'm very curious, with these experiences that make you more open and receptive, does that also open you up to, like Grandpa was just saying, about more stress? And there's a lot of negativity, right? So, and people close themselves off to protect themselves. I imagine it's very hard to open up the ego and be a open wound, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, what I tell my clients is that when they first start microdosing, you're much more open to reprogramming, and so you want to be careful what software you're uploading. So what I mean by that is that when you first take your microdose, you should be really cognizant of not turning on super crazy news, not getting into a fight with your partner, not getting stuck in traffic, not doing something super frustrating, you want to maybe like check in with your body, go on a nice walk, meditate, stretch, like help your body process energy out of yourself, like make it a really nice experience. But what it also does is that it shows you where you don't have boundaries in your life. And what I mean by that, or at least what changes you need to make in your life. So for instance, like some moms that I work with might be like, oof, I like snapped at my kid the other day and I felt it was like the microdose. And I'm like, maybe, does your family have like all access to you all the time? Like, do you ever have time by yourself? Like, are you constantly taking care of everyone? And they're like, typically, yeah. And I'm like, I think the mushrooms might be telling you that you need to like have mommy time once in a while. And you probably won't do that anymore. And it's kind of like, it shows you where you need to like make some changes in your life, to where you can be much happier. And that might mean like, I'm not happy at this job, or I'm not happy in this relationship, or I'm not happy with the lifestyle that I'm leading. And then you need to make changes for yourself, because the life that you give yourself with a little bit of clarity is typically a much better life for who you are. Or it shows you where you need to heal. Like sometimes it's just a matter of you healing that wound so you can still be a better person in your current life. So I think that's another reason why working with a coach is really important, because it's a lot of questions come up and it's nice to talk through them with someone and understand like, which one is it? Or is it a mixture of the two? And what plan can we make? And what changes can you make going forward to where you actually test this theory out, or to where you actually start feeling some difference in your life?
Bijou, is this a profession or whatever that is growing? Is it something, because I've never heard of it before. I know what a psychologist does, a psychiatrist, but I've never heard of this particular. Is this part of psychology, or is it something totally different?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Majority of the schools in the United States right now, you do have to be a practicing clinician or therapist to be able to go through facilitation training. I believe that you will be, in short order, be seeing it just across the board, just because it is a catalyst for faster, more like deep change than just regular talk therapy. I got my facilitator training from an organization that's in Amsterdam, that you only have to have experience like holding space for people or coaching prior. So yeah, I mean, you haven't really heard about it yet because it's not fully legal everywhere, but I believe once it is, that it will be a very widely known and widely experienced therapy.
But in the United States now, right now, marijuana is becoming legalized in some states, and possibly will be in the federal system as well. But these other drugs, I don't know. You know what? So how are you going to make it a mainstream type of situation if you're dealing with the criminality of the drug? That, you know, it seems kind of,
it's tricky,
difficult.
It's risky and it's tricky. Yeah, and I mean, most people would probably think that I'm stupid for doing it, but I'm that passionate about it. It's helped me that much, and it's helped my family and my friends that much. And I think that cannabis becoming legalized, and the government seeing that you can be, like, they can kind of trust the society with this plant medicine and make a lot of money off of it, that it's making it easier for them to be okay with the legalization of other substances. So for instance, Decriminalize Nature is an organization that's doing a really good job of moving it up in legislation pretty quickly. So there are states, or cities, that it is decriminalized, which is awesome. And like MAPS organization, which is a huge organization, is really working on all the studies to prove that MDMA should be legal, or at least in a clinical setting or a therapeutic setting. So I think in just a few years, we might see the drugs or plant medicines that are actually much safer legalized. So I don't think we'll ever see things like coke or meth or heroin or anything like that legalized, just because they are dangerous and people have had their lives ruined or lives taken from those substances, whereas the ones that are not as habit forming and that are therapeutic are probably going to have a much easier time getting up in legislation where changes will be made.
But as called a medicine, even a psychologist can't prescribe any kind of drugs. It has to be a clinical, psychiatrist. So is that, how are you going to get around that in your practice? That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently there are some churches, like you can get sanctioned as a church. You do have to go through a lot of steps, but the U.S. in some capacities can't tell a church what sacrament that they're not allowed to use. So there are like mushroom churches where people can actually like buy and utilize in the states or cities where it's legal or decriminalized. If they do take it and say only psychologists or psychiatrists can prescribe this, then I do think that there'll be such a huge demand for it that they might need to get prescribed it, but then they have a facilitator actually help them with that. I don't actually know what's going to happen. It's kind of the Wild West right now. And if that's the case, then potentially my clients would just be getting a prescription, but then I would just be coaching them. So I still am a coach. I still either help them with their personal relationships with themselves or with their businesses. So just my experience with plant medicines can make me more equipped to support them during their psychedelic journey, whether or not they get it from someone that is selling it illegally or they get it from a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
What I may be a little behind the times, but when you say that the government can't control what the church does, I've now, maybe some time ago, American Indians would use, I think peyote was one of the drugs that they did, but they were stopped by the by the government, and it was considered a religious thing that when they used the peyote, but the federal government still stopped them. I believe they did, and now I'm going back several years ago. I remember reading about it or hearing about it.
Yeah,
so anyhow, I guess we're kind of dwelling on the legal aspect of it, which is really not what you're.
Well, the pharmaceutical companies are popping out oxy in great fashion, and the war on drugs, a horrible background in history, and it's like we're still in the after effects and main effects.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I am a little bit concerned about the fact that they're already trying to synthesize it to be able to put a prescription on it. So you might not have the effects of like the psychoactive effects, but you might benefit from the depression that might be cleared up from it. But in my opinion, in working with it, I think that it should be left in its natural state, because I believe that mushrooms are intelligent and they give you what you need, and that synthesizing it out could have some issues, like we've seen with some other plant medicines that have been synthesized out. And if you're like making a facilitator or a psychiatrist perform these experiences in like a white room with like no experience themselves, with just a blindfold on, and no like ritual or ceremony to it, you're really missing out on a deeper experience. But whatever it takes to get this in more people, I kind of am just surrendering to the fact that I think ourselves as a society will see so much benefit from it, no matter how it's utilized. But it's only a matter of time before we see that they kind of just like synthesize it to figure out how to make money off of it, and then put strict laws on being able to prescribe it out or how you utilize it. And that makes me really sad, because right now psilocybin is so easy to grow. Like, for instance, cannabis is actually a really big wreck on the environment. It's like taking a lot of water out of certain areas and really affecting some of our agricultural world. And not to say there's anything wrong with cannabis, but there are some big impacts to it. Whereas a family could grow a box of mushrooms in their closet for very, very cheap, like under $100, and it would be enough for the whole family to be able to use, and their neighbors and whatever, for a whole year, if you're microdosing. And that's like so inexpensive and so empowering. So I really hope that that's more of a vision that we hold in the future.
Well, I got so much to say. Well, okay. I think I'll start with. Okay. Lots of things. One, you guys hit on a lot of it too. But what I was thinking when I was watching it, listening to you guys, was like all the drugs that we use now, every day, and then you were talking about connecting to your feelings, but maybe thinking of being like hypersensitive, which makes you think of like ADHD and lots of like dyslexia and just different like mental illnesses that people have, that people give drugs for to kind of like hamper that, which I wonder why that is. But I think that was really getting to me is, oh yeah, I hate capitalism. That's what it is. Yes, because I kept thinking, like, even what you were saying about being able to feed a family with the love of shrooms for $100 doesn't seem very profitable for the system that we're in, and even for like your job. Not no disrespect to it, but what I think is really profitable about pharmaceutical companies is that they're going to bring you back, and that's why I also think that lots of things are legal that are sellable on the counters, because they know you're coming back, so they can make money off of it. Things that you take it once and you're woke, doesn't seem like it didn't seem like it'll work in the American like algorithm. So it does seem like you're kind of stacked against maybe like a so how you gonna make it?
It actually won't affect me, in the sense that I have worked on my abundance block, and I believe that there's enough people in the world that can afford my services or my ability to support them. But I am not worried about the entire world growing their own mushrooms. In fact, I would love it. It would be like the best day of my life if everybody learned how to grow their own medicine. You're right. It's probably been illegal for a really long time, because it does help with addiction. It does help you get off of SSRIs. It did really help me get off of my Adderall issue. Like, it really solves a lot of problems that are making a lot of people rich. And so that's why I think they're probably really struggling with making it legal, or they're trying to figure out a way to make money off of it. So only time will tell what's going to happen. But unfortunately, that for them is that one of the side effects of mushrooms is you become more conscious and more woke and much more empowered and in love with yourself, which really hurts the capitalistic world. I mean, everything is very weak right now because it's not sustainable. Like, things are going to crash down when big changes are made. And I think it's necessary, unfortunately, even though it's going to be very hard.
Yeah, it doesn't look too hopeful the way you're describing the future. And
that sounds good.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, if you got a
True.
give me good. I mean, I don't got no money now. I think I'll be all right. I think you. I mean, I think it's a big. The hypersensitive part is interesting, because you talk about it as a positive thing, which it is. I appreciate it, but then as me growing up as a person, I think that when I hear of someone being hyperactive or hyper whatever, we tend to like that. That's I don't know.
So even when I did mushrooms, the one experience I had to shed the ego, it was so like shockingly difficult when I had consciousness of what that even meant. And now that it's been a while, I'm like, man, it's just so hard to let it go and just be, you know, cool or whatever.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. It's not easy, and that's why it's not habit forming. You don't want to do that all the time. I will say that if you are concerned about being too sensitive, that taking it before you go to bed helps you process some stuff and work out some stuff while you're asleep, and then you can be totally fine the next day. Or sometimes people will just do really big trips periodically, like they might do a really big trip with their partner, or they might do a really big trip for clarity or for healing purposes, like maybe they lost someone that they loved and they want to really grieve. Like you can use it in specific like defined times where you can open up and be extremely sensitive and like hyper aware of things for a short amount of time. But then you can like come back to a place where you're able to resource yourself a little bit more because you have a knowingness. So you actually come back much stronger. The ego is not a bad thing. We don't have to kill the ego. We just have to retrain the ego. So the ego is telling you this story about yourself that you get very attached to. And you have to be able to step away from yourself far enough. With psychedelics is an easier way to do it, of seeing yourself and seeing if this story is really serving you now. It's something that you've developed your whole life, and maybe you had a harder upbringing, or maybe you had experiences that shouldn't be dictating who you are with your partner or at work or wherever it is. So it's really important that you have the vision of what needs to be changed and then work on it with small habits that really support you over time. So I think that's why a big side effect of it is like you feel so much more connected. Like you feel connected to nature, you feel connected to your community, you feel more connected to yourself. And I personally think that that's what's going to save the planet. If people get a little bit more brave. I know it is like you have to be brave to try it, but if someone helps you and holds your hand and gives you the right dose that's appropriate for you, and you ease your way into it, and you just start playing with how you can utilize it as a true tool. Most of the tools that we use right now are deadening tools. They're just ways for us to put Band-Aids on things, or numb out, or zone out, or cover the pain. But that's why we keep coming back for those things, because they don't really work. They don't fix the root of the problem. And so that's why mushrooms work for so long. Like there are studies that are showing end of life studies where like someone gets a terminal diagnosis, they find out that they're going to die. And that is a very stressful thing for an animal or a human to know is coming. So typically people who get that feeling have a really hard time the rest of their existence, right? And that's not great. You shouldn't be like worrying about everything so much for the next like 6 months that you have left on the planet. So they might do a big, like a trip in a clinical setting. And just that one trip is enough to be like, I'm at peace with like letting go. I want to give my family all of my love and attention while I'm still here. I'm so grateful for my existence. Like, let me do all the fun things that I want to get out of the way. And so like that one trip sometimes can be enough for like 2 or 3 years. Like you never know. It's crazy.
No, I think you answered my question too. Not even about being afraid of being hypersensitive. Just why is it looked at so negatively in our society a little bit? But it does sounds like that, because if you get a bunch of hypersensitive people, that means they are responsible for things, you know, like a little bit like, oh wait, hey, I woke up now, I have to like do things, and maybe we don't like doing that, so we're like, I might as well not think about that.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the death thing, because it's been on my mind as a question that I really wanted to ask you. Because I a long time ago read one of the studies about how it cured death anxiety completely in like a huge portion of people. And it's something that a few years ago I like lost faith, and sort of my belief of an afterlife went away. And since then, periodically, but it's been getting sort of worse. I've been, even though I'm relatively young, whatever, very scared. It's like in the back of my mind a lot, and something where it's like just talking with a therapist, it doesn't feel very helpful. And it goes in circles a lot, because that's the thing, right? It's the big thing. I'd love to hear your personal experience with any of what I just talked about. And also, I don't know, I was even debating, like, maybe that's something that would completely help, and I don't even know of another option that might, right? So
Yeah, I mean, talking about the thing, you're right, isn't moving enough to like really feel your feelings or like come to terms with it or have some peace. But I will say that at the root of every issue that we have, like, am I going to get exiled for my opinion? That means certain death, like back in the day. Am I going to be able to support my family and myself? That could mean death, right? I could be so sad that I lost this partner. I could be heartbroken. That feels like death. That feels like I'm dying. Like, all of it is this fear of death. And obviously we have that because like it's a survival method. It's very scary. It's the scariest thing. But I will say that I've become so much more at peace with some of those ideas that the power that the fear had over me has dissipated so much that I no longer like worry so much about what my community that is being super judgmental thinks about me. Like when I'm on my deathbed, am I going to be like, oh, that aunt like really hated that post that I posted about mushrooms on Instagram. I shouldn't have done that. No, like I have a reframing of things that is like not so worried about, am I going to be able to eat? Like, am I going to be light? Am I going to be okay? It's much more of an empowerment that I feel like I can take care of myself. And I'm much less worried about like what death is going to be like. Now my focus on is, how am I going to live to my fullest? Like, instead of being scared of going out of that cave because you could die, I can't stay in the cave because that's not enough of a life, right? So like thinking about it, like I'm saying cave as like if I was a caveman, right? So yeah, you'll probably be safe in that cave. You're probably going to have to eat like rats and you're not going to see the sunset. So like, yeah, you lived safely for a lot longer potentially, but I had a better life because I was out there being chased by saber-toothed tigers and potentially enjoying part of it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the reframing and the vision that I had about that. And so I think that that's a thing that is very empowering to people, is that they get a lot less worried about the what if negativity. They're more about the what can I do? What's possible? Like, what can I give myself as a gift while I'm still here?
Yeah, Grandpa and Phines.
I was just going to say I have a weird philosophy. Most people would not accept it, but I believe that reality or consciousness is all being created by the mind, by the creator, and we're basically puppets of the mind. We don't really have control. We have the illusion of control, just like the illusion of reality. That's what our life is. And of course, everyone has, or most people, I think, have a fear of the unknown. You don't even walking out of an elevator or into an elevator that somebody might be in there. You don't know. And especially the afterlife. Is there an afterlife? And if it is, what it's going to be like, and all this and that. So, I mean, these are normal human emotions. And I don't really truly believe that anybody really knows. I mean, obviously, the religious people think they know, but I'm not so sure that they do. I just don't think that anyone really knows the afterlife.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that's the exact sentiment that I have is like, why am I so worried about what I don't have control over? Like, I don't know if there's an afterlife. So just in case there's not, I better live it up and enjoy myself now and not do any harm, right? Don't hurt anyone. Don't do any harm to where if there is a hell, you don't end up there. But those are the things. Like we have all these boxes that keep us all in these lines because we were told these stories that are really affecting how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, how we feel about our lives. And there's so many people that are like in these tight little boxes because they're thinking that they're going to enjoy life once they die or they enjoy themselves once they die. And you're like, what if there isn't an afterlife? What if you just come back here to learn the lessons that you didn't learn before? Like no one really knows the answer to that. So you might as well like have fun while you can, or at least experience deeply.
I like your jacket.
Thank you. It's balanced. I'm like really into balance lately. Thanks.
I like it. My caveat, I'm here for it. Here's my like
Okay.
though. And this makes me think. I'm just coming off thinking about it. When you're getting coaches and people that are supporting you through this, there are some realities that people are stuck in. Like I think about what you're saying, like, oh yeah, consciousness, I can live this, I shouldn't be fearful of this. And then people get shot by cops because of the color of their skin, which is something they can't really get out of. So but I do like what you're saying with like, you can gear towards something that's not fearful based and more towards dealing with it. But I'm trying to figure out how to articulate my question. Yeah, I guess I'm wondering how many people of color that are able to coach and support people that are going through that, like really real life, like all the, because I understand the yeah about this is not a real, it's whatever, it's my outlook, but that can be also looked at as a very privileged way of looking at things sometimes, in the sense that there are real, like actual concrete things that will hurt me or hurt people.
That's a very, very good point. So my take on that is, so let's say the society around you is projecting onto you. It's saying that you're probably going to commit a crime, or you're probably this, or you're probably that. That projection onto you does affect you. It does affect like what you think you're capable of. It does affect what you think that you're worth. It does affect a lot, right? So that is reprogramming that needs to happen. So I believe that like we owe it to anyone that our society has wronged in that way to help reprogram the fact that they are like valuable people. And that's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And then at the same time, like I believe that first responders need to be doing psychedelics as well, because they see a lot. They're typically, some of them might be from a very like violent home themselves, and that's why they chose to be in that career. So they have that type of power, whereas some of them are very like wanting to protect, and they have these narratives in their mind. Like you never know what's going on, but we all need to be much more connected and much more healed. And I think that that would make a huge difference. But you're right. Like a lot of what I'm saying is from a very privileged position. And I think that that's why there's so many awesome organizations right now that I'm really interested in what they're doing. And it is for the people that need extra support or that need access to this medicine and need to be working with people that know what it feels like and can support them in coming up and out of like the shit that everyone's been putting on everyone.
You know what, too? Aha moment, because I, also thinking like, who am I to say that? Because I'm sitting here in America talking on a podcast, so I'm also very privileged myself. So I'm thinking like, how could I coach someone that literally has these really real restraints? But that's the cool thing about it being so cheap that someone can probably grow it and use it at any time, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I will say I think that's why a lot of people utilize cannabis so much, or alcohol, because it is numbing to the pain that everyone's really feeling in real time, and that is a beautiful thing. It's a way to kind of like not have to experience this trauma all the time. But I will say that some of the medicine that makes you turn around into yourself and heal the parts of yourself means that you don't have to numb to existence all the time, that you can actually like experience much deeper and from a place of more strength and compassion and love. I think that was what was really big for me. Like, if you had met me before psychedelics, you would be like shocked at who I am now. Like, I was super capitalistic. I was only focused on money. I was like, no offense if anyone's a Republican, but I was a Republican. I was like, very...
You said that like you're saying a cuss word. You said that like it was about to get bleeped out.
It should. No, just kidding. No. There's nothing wrong with those Republicans, but I am a completely different person now. Like, I'm much more focused on outside rather than inside, I would say.
I have a fear or something that bothers me, and that is that I know that an animal is being killed for me to eat meat. Okay. And that really bothers me. And or if there's a mouse in my home, I need to trap it and kill it. And I don't want to kill anything. Now, how is psychedelics going to help me with that?
Do you want it to help you with that? I mean, I guess that's the thing is, it does make us much more thoughtful of the lives around us. Unfortunately, like I'm with you on that. Like I live out in the country now. I used to live in downtown Austin, and we just moved out to the middle of nowhere, and you see death much more prevalent in nature, and you also have to, like, unfortunately control some parts of nature. So for instance, like, you can get an infestation if you don't trap the rats, but like the thought of killing a rat that I see in like that cage is just horrendous to me. And I think it's because I'm super sensitive to things now, and like I eat way less meat if ever now. And I don't know, it's kind of like being a little bit more thoughtful. Like, for instance, like we have chickens, and if I felt like it was better for the chicken because they're older now and they're probably going to die of natural causes soon, like, do I feel a little bit better about eating them? I don't know. I'm working through all this right now. I don't really have an answer for you, but there are some things that I don't think psychedelics are going to be able to heal, and I think it's for a reason. And I don't claim to know the reason, but...
Do you think you've gotten yourself straightened out, your head clear?
I think it's going to be a lifelong journey, constantly like breaking myself down and rebuilding myself. But I will say I've healed a lot. I can see some major points that are proof of my healing. I think that we have like deep-seated issues that we probably need a lot of work on, and it's like a constant, just a job almost. I feel like my main job in life is to make sure I'm not an asshole or I'm actually healed. And but then that's not to say that life is constantly stressful and new big things are like coming and affecting me all the time. So I will say I'm so much more healed, but I do not have my shit together completely yet. And I don't know if I ever will, but that's kind of the fun of it, potentially.
I don't think anybody does.
Mm-mm.
I don't think anybody has it all together, but you know,
that is human.
You do the best in life. It's a matter of survival.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Wow. I'm just sorry. I'm trying to hold up my capitalism jokes. I'm like, so capitalism does have a chance. So they don't have to lean on addiction so much.
Yeah. It's all interesting. I don't know what the answer is to everything or to anything, but right now I am seeing some major changes and some major healing and some people a lot happier now than when they first started. So that's what I'm going to rest my case on for now. But who knows? You're finding out new ways to read energy and to read people and to find out how big space really is. Who knows what we're going to figure out? I mean, I had a vision one time on a psychedelic journey where, you know, those like, have you ever seen those videos on Instagram where the microscope zooms really far in and you get to see like the tiny little cell, but it was out here, like maybe on a bird's feather? Well, like I had this vision that Earth was just like, or our universe was just a cell, like on a giant's foot. And like, we're like so worried about so much, but we're just like this tiny microscopic cell. And that was like pretty eye-opening to be like, wow, like don't sweat the small stuff because it potentially could be like microscopic small stuff compared to like aliens, what aliens have going on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Aliens could just be a piece of dirt hitting your giant's foot that we're all being a part of. What was I gonna say? I agree. No, I can't remember what I was gonna ask about.
Phines is really the wise man. He has a great dry sense of humor. Unbelievable.
I feel like someone might be microdosing me without me knowing because I have these thoughts all the time. But just the fact that the inverse of what you were saying, I was looking up at the stars yesterday, and someone, not me, had the thought like if everybody just went outside and looked at the stars for like half an hour a night, I think, you know, thoughts would be a lot different. But the fact that like just scientifically that we sort of came from whatever this is, right? These little and got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that line for every single one of us just is like, I mean, it's just we, and then we get to be conscious. Like the whole, I think a lot of what we're talking about is consciousness and the fact that it's like this gift that we have for this short period of time that, like, you know, only very like a blip of Earth has ever gotten to experience. I mean, it's a very, I don't know why I never have these thoughts, but very recently all this stuff has become very overwhelming to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can't. It's hard for me to imagine that it's a chance happening, that I'm alive right now, that I'm alive, like with the technology that we have, with the psychedelic renaissance, with the sexual renaissance, like with these revolutions that are going on. Like I feel very called to be immersed in them because it's like, did we choose to be here right now? Like what is the truth? It's all very interesting that we are here with the billions of organisms that are on this planet even, and potentially in space. We are here right now and we are humans.
Right.
Like, what the hell?
I know. It's the
crazy.
Craziest trip of all. Yeah.
Life's a trip.
It's really...
And the mushrooms just remind you that. Yeah. Or they did to me, at least.
What were you talking about before about the death? You're saying about the reframing for you personally and clients that you've had, but the question of how, does it just happen, or like what is that process of that reframing? What does the trick? Because I've not been able to find that.
I will say it wasn't at first an intention of mine. If it had been, I probably would have come to that conclusion maybe faster, but it was a product of my experimentation. So I can't clearly say this is how I arrived at that, but I will say that there have been times when I was looking for intention with my trips, and I definitely got it. I think it's just a byproduct of the fact that we're able to see our connection, and we're able to just be so grateful for our existence and for the people around us, and for our five senses, for our bodies, for our experiences, that we kind of just realize that that's the important thing that I should be focused on, and not the light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? It's like about the journey, not the destination type realization that you get.
So it's not a realization about the afterlife or what comes next. It
is, in the sense that, like, it's just meta. It just goes outward. It's just like, if you understand it for this week, you understand it for your life in general, kind of thing, because it's all just a version, a microscopic, a macroscopic version of the same idea. And when you know it so deeply, it's like such a deeply held truth after that type of experience that it just like ripples out, and you just understand it as a knowing or a truth across all the planes. Yeah.
Sounds like acceptance. What was I going to say? I figured. Oh, yes. Community is something that you've been saying a lot of, that, well, at least what I'm taking away from this, because having some people to support you through your trip and talking about these ideas, and I don't know why I'm stuck on that.
Oh,
for
so
some reason.
integration is one of the most important things. So you might see a lot of the woke community like talking about all the trips that they've done, and like they're just like trip happy. They're just like constantly doing things that you can tell that they're not really integrating potentially like their trip. They're not giving the trip the amount of time and space afterwards to process it, because I believe that we kind of we open ourselves like a portal to a higher knowing. And if we don't wait for that portal to close, it's like having too many tabs open almost. And you still start downloading more information while you're processing your trip. So like sometimes people will come out of their trip and they don't exactly remember everything, or they can't explain the trip in words, because like the English language or language in general is very limiting. Like there are so many words that we have so many things that we don't have words for even. So it's really important that you integrate that. So not only do you have to feel like someone is holding space for you that you can like really crack open in, that someone's going to be there for you if you need them, to where you really surrender, like you really open up, you really like let loose and relax. But then after the fact, like the true therapy comes in like explaining what happened, explaining the knowingness that you have now, explaining the feelings that you're able to process or the visuals that you saw. Like integration is the most important part. So whether or not you do that in journaling or talking to your partners or your friends about it, there's something to talking to someone who's experienced that kind of reality, because you guys can like both understand when you can't find the words to explain it. They almost like know because they've been there. And it's kind of like when someone's been to war and someone hasn't, like you don't know what I've been through. So I don't feel like I can communicate to you my experience and like process that. Whereas someone else can like be like, I know what you experienced. Like, let's talk through that. It's that type of thing that you really just need that extra support to really like keep yourself on track.
Ooh, okay. I'll do my funny joke and then I'll ask my tough question. Because you're talking about like people not knowing their senses and whatnot. And this shows you how refined, like this, like closed in we are, because, you know, you can taste something that's metallic, but it's not a part of our like 5 taste buds, like, you know, so that's weird, and limiting. But no, my question, the hard question is, what age do you feel like someone should start like busting open that reality of like all that?
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that studies show that when your brain is done growing, it's potentially a good time to basically start doing that. I will say though that I know people who really felt the need to support their younger children, and by younger I mean like teenagers, because they were going through some really hard times, like they were suicidal or heavily bullied or really dealing with some heavy stuff, and they started microdosing. There are even some communities in the world where mothers microdose when they're pregnant and when they're breastfeeding, because it actually does potentially help the brain grow and develop, and it also bonds the mother and the baby like pretty substantially. I don't know the answer to that. I know that we'll probably figure that out, but from my understanding of how psilocybin especially affects the brain, it doesn't seem like it would hinder any type of growing or developing, but I am not a doctor and I have no real room to speak yet. Would I potentially, and I'm not going to have kids, but if I were pregnant, I would potentially microdose. If my child was like 15 and really struggling, I would put them on microdoses. So that's just me. I think it's a very personal decision that you have to do a lot of research and you have to come to your own conclusions on. But I've seen people as young as in their teens benefit from it.
On the flip side, what's the oldest that you've seen? What's the oldest client you've ever had?
So my dad's 80 and he takes it all the time because it's really great for dementia and Alzheimer's, like your neural pathways reconnecting. And it's really phenomenal for brain development. So I know a couple of people plus my brother who has had severe like brain trauma or brain injuries, and it helps. I had really bad dyslexia, focus issues. Like I think that it does wonders on the brain. In fact, in my microdosing guide, I think I have a whole 2 pages of how it actually works in your brain, and it's pretty amazing. So I think that everybody should be microdosing, but that's my bias side.
Are you referring to psilocybin right now?
I am.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you go through different stages in life, and for instance, if you're using, let's say, pot, you might have a heightened sense of sexuality or of music, or of philosophy, or whatever, and those. The different stages that you go through, you do go through different stages in life, and with aging and with maturity. So what maybe seems like something at one time in your life where you think it's like the be all and end all of everything, at another stage in your life it may not be. It may not seem the same to you.
Totally. Yeah. I say that I'm going to be the Mushroom Mamasita for the rest of my life, but you never know. I never know what's going to happen.
Right. And quite frankly, I knew an individual personally, very close personally, who really had in fact, I knew 2 individuals had very bad experience. I wouldn't say very bad, but they were bad experiences from just smoking pot. And they became animated and eventually had to go under the care of a psychiatrist and got it straightened out. But I've seen different issues in my life with people.
Oh yeah, I mean I've had a pretty like not great experience on cannabis as well. Cannabis works in a completely different part of the brain, but especially with how strong some of it is now, in even edibles, like you definitely have to be a little bit of a mad scientist. You have to be kind of brave to to test out the different plant medicines and understand what's best for you, or determine that no substances are right for you and you just want to process things through breath work and somatic movement or massage. Like there's so many different ways that you can support yourself in healing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No. Go.
I just want to say I've heard this before from people in your generation that today the effects or the drug is so much more powerful. I don't believe that. I think that the marijuana back 40 years ago was very powerful, and I think it's a generational thing that every generation feels that this is the generation that has this particular greatest athlete, greatest this, greatest that. It's part of that psychology.
I will say though that like laboratory testing and like hybrids, like using the strongest form of the strongest genetics over and over and over again. I mean, when Terence McKenna talked about 5 grams of mushrooms in a dark room, he didn't have some of the strains that we have now, and he didn't have access to them. They weren't like widely like findable or prevalent. So I understand what you're saying on that, but there are some things now that would have like melted his face off. And so I don't know if it's like the case with mushrooms, but I definitely have talked to some people that had tried mushrooms a long time ago and then tried some of the things that are available now, and we're very shocked at the strength. But yeah, I mean, who's to say? Who really even cares? It's all about right now, how you are affected by it, whether or not it's stronger now than then.
Now, can you develop a mail order kit for it?
Like, what do you mean?
Send mushrooms mail order to people.
Well, once they are legal, I would love to be able to do that for people.
But the mushrooms themselves are not illegal, right?
You're right in the sense that the spores are not illegal. You can, anyone can buy spores for scientific purposes, to look at the spores underneath a microscope. They're very inexpensive and very easy to purchase. And if you were to then inoculate something and grow it on grain, that's where you've broken the law. But you are correct. Anyone in the entire United States at this point can purchase spores.
I was kind of making a joke anyhow.
Well, I have a question
Too real.
for Grandpa is Grandpa, not to say that you have or have not done any drug, period, right? But I'm curious, do you feel hesitancy talking about any personal experience if you were to have them, and if so, why? I would love to have that conversation
with drugs. Up until I was approximately, I think, 36 years old. Yeah, about 36 years old, and then I just totally stopped. And the person that got me started, her name was Rusty Start. But but anyhow, yeah, I've had personal experiences for approximately 8 or 10 years, and I thought, oh my God, this is it. This will never change. It was a big part of my life. And then as I got older, things really change in your life. You do change.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you look at first of all, you start out by looking at the overall situation. In my case, when you smoke pot, it was very harsh on your lungs, and I felt that it would be deleterious to my lungs. So that was one reason that I decided to stop. And I think I had gotten pretty much everything that I thought I would be able to get out of using it. It's like I say, it's a hypnotic. It allows you to focus on a particular thing and kind of take everything else out of your brain at the same time. So in my case, it was started out as a sexual thing, a musical thing, then it turned into more of a mechanical thing and a philosophical thing. You go through different stages, but at some point, I guess in my case, I just decided to stop doing it. That's all.
I promise I'm teasing, but I'll make this joke anyway. But you're just like once you start hearing the Beatles walking and talking and start feeling all the things in your jaw, you're like, this is too much. I've gone too far.
Could be.
It was at about 36, and you're like, this is a little. Now I've done it.
No, but you did
I
mention
think a lot of their writings and music, they were high half the time.
I think Phines was talking about real Beatles, right?
You
real Beatles.
I'm talking about. I'm just doing the like your ongoing thing of like you being able to hear everything, and in my mind, I'm Barton at 36 and going, oh my God, I just heard a Beatle talk to me, and I was like, I'm done. I've reached it. I'm done taking this stuff.
But it never stopped.
Right. You don't, yeah. But you did mention a bit of hesitancy, not on talking about it, but talking about your own personal experiences with it. And you still haven't answered. I'm very curious, Grandpa, why that is.
I don't know. I think I have discussed it. I mean, I don't get into the specifics, but I had a situation, as I mentioned, with another individual who, just from marijuana, in the beginning of the using it for probably a year, became a very animated character, almost like a comedic with her physical motions and everything, and then became psychotic, and literally you could not get to her. I mean, she was in a different world with psychosis, and then through, I guess, therapy with a psychiatrist, got straightened out. So, I mean, but as far as my personal, I think I learned a lot from the use of, and I've done a number of different drugs, but I just have no need for them anymore. I just don't have a need for them.
I mean, I do. I'm not trying to speak for your grandpa here, but I do think there's a real reason not to or be done with it or to stop doing it. If you, especially, sorry, Grandpa, I'm trying to speak for you, but when it's not like it's the fact that it's even commercial is new. But in your life where you're a grown person with a family and you have a reputation and there's so much backlog behind it, I can see why people shy away from it at a certain age or a certain time, because you have quote unquote responsibilities in this world where they can put you in jail.
Yeah, but I feel like this
you.
is what I wanted to talk about with Bijou, is because I feel like all of it is so especially hallucinogens are so like stigmatized, right? And I feel like they're I don't know when they put a stop to the studies, but if it was 40 years ago, 60 years ago, I feel like there's a lot of like mental health as well as I mean, stuff that we were talking about that is so beneficial. And yeah, I don't know, it's like sad to me.
Well, I think what Phines said is very relevant. There's a stigma to it, and and especially more so 40, 50, 60 years ago than today. But that's a good point that you made, Phines, that there is a stigma, and because Brandon asked why am I somewhat apprehensive about discussing it. Well, I've mentioned what I did, and it's a long time ago.
What do you think, Bijou?
Yeah, I mean, it's I was not letting anyone know what I was doing for almost 5 years before I became public about it. And yeah, and there's a lot of stigma. I'm still having family members like really upset with my decisions. And I understand that they're worried. I understand where they're coming from, but it's just something that I'm passionate about, and it makes me want to take the risk because I feel like it's just a matter of bad PR. And I understand it. I mean, if you think about it, they bring this into clinical testing, and you do look crazy when you're on some like psychedelics. Like, you are processing a lot, and it could be like, oh my God, I just like cried so much, or that was so intense, that clinicians could look at that and go, that is a psychotic episode, and that person went crazy for a minute. And it just looks so insane sometimes. And especially if someone isn't prepared for it, that no wonder maybe they thought, we need to save people from this. Or maybe they did see that it helped expand the mind and made people less willing to go to war. It happened right when people were saying no to going to war. It was the hippies that were doing all the mind altering drugs that said, F you, we're not going to fight. And that's kind of when the government went, this is dangerous, and you're going to claw your face off and jump out of a building if you do this. And so who knows what the real reason is, but it's finally getting some of the PR and some of the testing that I think that it deserves. Because I mean, on the scale of safety, like, they find that people are like hospitalized for table salt more than they are for psychedelic mushrooms. So it's a safe thing, in my opinion, if you do it right. But yes, you're right, it could be traumatizing if you are not prepared and in the right situation. But it's getting a lot of publicity at this point. And I think that's kind of why I became a little bit more comfortable with talking about it, just because I finally had some reputable universities or organizations that were saying the same thing that I was, and it wasn't just my experience or just some other people's experiences that I knew. It was actually like provable in clinical studies. And so, yeah, that's kind of when I was like, okay, it's something that I've been talking about in an underground situation for a really long time, but now I'm ready to like kind of come out about it and want to support people on their journeys as well.
I think that's amazing.
When you're high, everything sometimes seems very profound. And then when you're not high, you look back at what your thoughts were and whatever, and sometimes it might be profound, but it might be kind of.
But you're talking about weed, Grandpa.
Or stupid or whatever. Pardon?
You're talking about marijuana more so, no?
I am.
Yeah.
But I've done other drugs. I mean, I don't know that you can do very much other than just take everything in when you're on, say, acid, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, there have been times when, like, I could use the example of, I was on something and I went to a concert or I watched a movie and I was like, oh my God, that was the best thing I ever saw or heard in my whole life. And then I listened to it sober and I'm like, it just doesn't hit the same way. And is that really that wasn't very good? Or was it that I am not as open to all of the sensitivity and the emotion that might have brought up to me? I don't know. Like, coming back to a normal state means what? It means maybe a little bit of a closed off feeling because you're dealing with real life and you're stressed and you're like, it loses its luster. Like, I will say that when I microdose, all of the little things look so much better to me. Like, outside looks glittery and my dogs look like that much cuter, and like I just love my partner that much more. And so you're right, like, it does make you a little bit different, but I would say, in my opinion, in my experience, in a good way.
Yeah, and a lot of great artists, whether they be art or writers, have done amazing things with their profession when they're high. I'm aware of that. So it depends on the person a lot and their abilities and so forth.
Yeah, I know we're getting close to the end, but I did want to ask you sort of, because I'm super interested in this, and I feel like a lot of listeners would be, but the actual progression of the consultation or the sessions or whatever. You said initial call, and then how does it sort of go from there? Is this all over Zoom, or do you prep people before the trip, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it typically starts out with a call, like a consultation, to really understand what their goals might be, like what they're either trying to heal from, or what blocks they potentially need to move, or how this medicine can support them. And then based on who they are and what traumas they've experienced in the past, how sensitive they are, what they have going on currently in their life and their lifestyle, what the right strain is, what the right dose is. And this is all off of my experience to try to give them a couple options or ideas to test. And I support them on them, like figuring out how to source it themselves. They can figure it out, but they're much more educated in like finding someone near them that is not going to give them old product, or not going to give them the wrong strain that isn't appropriate for microdosing, or certain questions that people are not asking when they're getting mushrooms. And they'll either be like, holy crap, that was really strong. And I'm like, well, how fresh was it? How much did you take? Which strain was it? Or they might get some like super old product that, I mean, they lose their potency over time. So then they might take a lot and go, I don't feel mushrooms. And they're like, I don't think that's the case. I think they might have been old. And so someone just like helping them figure out what the right protocol and regimen is for them. So like some people want to get off of SSRIs. They have a specific ordeal, like they have to take more and they have to potentially do it for 6 months, whereas normal people can just do it for a 3-month container. It really just works on figuring out what's right for the nuance of that person. And then if it does turn out that they find their blocks with sessions with me, we can either work on practices that they can support themselves in moving that block. But sometimes we find something that's so deeply embedded, or that they're so invested in holding on to, that you typically have to do a pretty big trip to move that type of block, and in which case they need a facilitator. So we would be able to go to a place where it is legal or decriminalized and do a pretty big trip to move that, and then I help them integrate afterwards. So it's really just mostly about supporting them, making sure they're keeping up with it. Because I mean, there will be times sometimes where people are like, I'm really seeing amazing benefits, but it is bringing up so much in my life that it would be easier for me just to stop right now. And so that's where the support is really important, to just help people stick with it, to really see major changes in their lives.
So for the bigger trips, you would sort of be in the room with them during that trip, but the smaller stuff, it's like prep, and then they go off on their own and then come back and sort of debrief with you.
Totally. So the sessions are virtual. They're on Zoom, and they typically take a double microdose beforehand, so they're much more open. And I try to get them in a really comfortable trance state and ask them a lot of questions and help them visualize some things and help them understand what's going on inside their mind and body. And then I give them practices to be able to utilize to either heal that or understand it a little bit more. But then smaller trips, like if they go and do it with their partner, or they go do it for clarity about their business or something like that, I figure that they're capable of doing it, and I explain how they should, especially for smaller doses. But if you get over a certain amount, then I definitely don't suggest that anyone does it by themselves or without a facilitator that has experience in holding space for someone like that.
And I find it so cool and interesting that your forte is entrepreneurs and sort of people running businesses and stuff. People always say, they're like, oh my God, 2 hours, but then it flies by, and it's like, darn, there's so much more to talk about and stuff. But yeah, I would say we always do last thoughts on the show, and I don't want to keep everybody over, but I would love to just go around and do last thoughts and all that kind of stuff. Phines, I don't know.
Um, yeah, it's a shame because I do have a lot to ask. I'm gonna try to say it really quick. Um, okay, you're talking about drugs, tripping out. Beer. People get messed up on all types of alcohol. And they trip out hard, and people didn't like anticipate that. So I don't see the big deal. But it makes me also think though. I'm trying to give alcohol a bad rap. What it sounds like too is that we need coaches, even when people are at the bar. Like, hey, let's talk about your trauma, maybe. And then there was another thing. Oh
Those are
yeah,
bartenders.
exactly. Pay them. They're like therapists. Pay them more. They are giving drugs. Oh yeah, you're way more brave. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say you're pat, but you're being super brave because it's hard to do what you're doing. Oh, and the last one was I
Thanks.
read Doors of Perception, and there was this part of this book where they were talking about like you being on drugs is like not very useful for the mind because you'd be like looking at like a tree and how beautiful it is when there'll be like a tiger about to fuck you up, and you have to have certain type of like the reason why we don't take drugs all the time is because of that sense of it. And I guess I understand. And that's all. That's my final thought was thank you for all that, and yeah, you're awesome.
On that note, people should read Food of the Gods, where they talk about stoned ape theory. It's kind of what you're talking about, but it actually people think that it's the reason why our brains grew so fast. Like, there's no real reason why our brains grew so fast in such a short amount of time. So they think that it might be a possibility that that apes ate mushrooms out of the plains and turned into people. I don't know. Just if you're interested in that theory, you should read Food of the Gods. It's really interesting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's some real 2001 Space Odyssey, but I've heard it too. It sounds very accurate, honestly. What are your last thoughts?
Well, Bijou, you're an unusual guest, very compelling. I might even start using drugs again after listening to you.
Yes.
You're sweet. Enjoyed having you as a guest.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bijou?
Yeah, I'll do mine. I really love y'all's concept because I find it really special that I get to talk to my dad about this, and like multi-generational, being able to express our thoughts and feelings about all of this stuff is, I think, really important. I think a lot of times we get super separated and we could learn so much from each other. Like, a lot of people will only see their elders or the youth of their family during like holidays, where it's hard to kind of like have these deep introspective conversations. So I loved the concept of the show, and it did not disappoint. I had such a good time talking to you guys, so thank you for that.
Yeah. For
Brandon?
me, just off that, right? Yeah, I never do mine. It's so cool. I was not nervous, but very like curious what this would be like, because I feel like you're totally right, BG. Like, if it was just you and I or something, the hosting, like it would just be like yes, like a lot of sort of, I don't know, conversation and then Grandpa would just be like, he was not introduced to this. So having this dynamic was one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. This flew by. Very rarely am I like, oh my gosh, I'm upset because I have so much more, but maybe another episode soon. You were an incredible guest. I'm so appreciative of your time.
Thanks.
I had a lot of fun and a lot of exploring to do. I might, yeah. So where can people find you? What are your socials? All of that.
Yeah, I'm super active on Instagram. I love Instagram. I'm Mushroom Mamasita on there. And my business is Story X Style, was my website. So storyxstyle.com. Those are majority of the two places I hang out the most. It's hard enough to create content for just those two, but I'm really open and receptive to talking to people about all of this. I love just supporting them with their questions. So yeah, reach out to me with anything. And then also, I don't know if you guys want it, but if your listeners want a code to be able to get my microdosing guide for free, I'll get that to you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Brandon's computer exploded, so I'm gonna.
He's right here on the phone with me. But do you have anything to say, Sierra? Do you have a last word?
Thank you so much for coming, Bijou. Very interesting. Learned a lot. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe or follow us on your however you listen or watch the show, and share this podcast with someone you know that may be interested. And as always,
people hear me.
Yeah.
As always,
Okay.
Grandpa Bart, Brandon loves you.
Okay.
Hey, no, Grandpa, I love
Nope.
I love you too, Brandon.
Podcasting with Grandpa Bart and Rosie, always on his shoulder. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Grandpa and Chill is brought to you by your hosts, Brandon Fox, Bart Frank, and Phines Jackson. Our producer is Sierra Doss. To watch and listen to full episodes of the show and follow us on social media, visit grandpaandchill.com. That's grandpaandchill.com.